before I introduce Dr. Leman, I've got to make a confession. I'm not real computer savvy, but I did some snooping on the computer, and I came across something that I thought, you know what? He jokes about himself a lot, but there was a day he was a looker. There was a day. And there you go. Look at this. Look at this. Does this look good or what? Come on, keep it going. Keep it going. Oh, my goodness. Wow. This guy's on his way, man. Whew. Dr. Leman, come and tell us what we need to do. Come on. Welcome, Dr. Kevin Leman, would you please?
That was a 1960 Corvair that burned 45 quarts of oil between here and San Diego. We left here on August 5th, 1967, in that car with no air conditioning. We left about 4:30 in the afternoon. We spent $29 on flowers for our wedding. It was a big wedding. We had ham sandwiches at my wife's aunt's home. That was our reception. Talk about being dumb. We spent the night in Yuma. $12 for the hotel. The one smart thing I did, it's funny what those pictures generate in your head, but the one smart thing we did was I pulled off the side of the road as I was leaving Tucson, and I was smart enough to know this. I pulled off the side of the road, and I said, honey, I just want to pray for us. And I reached over, and the stupid Corvair had a stick shift. So reaching over, this was not a car to park, by the way, at the end of Campbell. Is there anybody here who parked at the end of Campbell in their lifetime? You were the guys, huh? Beeping the horn really irritated me. But anyway, I digress. But I pulled off the side of the road, and I just held hands with her across the way, and I just prayed that God would bless this marriage. That was the smartest thing I did on my honeymoon. Now, a couple things. It was thoroughly coincidental that Mickey Mantle and the New York Yankees were playing in Anaheim Stadium, a 3-game series, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday after we got married. That was coincidence. That I had box row seats, 4 rows from. How dumb can you be? You take your wife to a baseball game on your honeymoon? 3 of them? I gave her her diamond in a field behind my parents' house near Townsend Junior High School. Now you talk about ambiance. How dumb can you be? I mean, it's amazing when I look back at some of just how we started off. I look back now at how God has blessed this union 5 kids later. And by the way, where are single people here? Hands up. Single people. Can we start with you guys for just a second? Now, the question is, are you the lucky ones? Or are we the lucky ones? But you know, sometimes we don't mean to diss singles, but we do. But I'll tell you, relationships are a little bit more simple than they appear on the surface. And if you're looking for Mr. Right or Miss Right, there's a couple things you really got to understand. I mean, if you really want a keeper, okay, if you want something that's great, find someone who, number one, loves God. You find someone who loves God, they're a great bet, okay? Find someone who had a great relationship, this guy with his mother. Find a guy that treats women well, has a track record, so to speak, of all good, positive relationships with the opposite sex. If you do that, you've got a winner in your pocket. Now, if this guy has a temper, throw up the yellow flag, because temper equals control. You know, I've never had a woman come to my office and say, you know what I love about my husband, Harold? I love the way he controls me. You know, I have never heard that. And so, and where do you meet men, you know, in this day? I talk to women all the time and say, I don't get a chance to meet people. You got to be creative. You sure don't meet them in bars, okay? When I was a dean of students at the U of A, I always did a talk for the new students, and then I did a talk for the parents, you know, and I'd reassure the parents of things. I'd say, I know you all heard about the fact that there's cockroaches in the residence halls. Now, let me put your fears to rest. There are no cockroaches in the residence hall. The rats ate them years ago. And I would just always like to have fun. And I had these young co-eds come to me one day and they said, you know what, you said, if you have any questions or anything on your first few weeks here on campus, come and see me. And I did say that. And they came and they said, you know, we walk by 10,000 guys every day, but we don't get to meet anybody. I said, well, how adventurous are you? And they said, well, we're adventurous. I said, well, does anybody have a popcorn popper? Yeah, 2 of them had popcorn poppers. I said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just pick a dorm, any dorm on campus. They lived in Coronado Hall. I said, I want you to go over to the lobby of that men's hall, and I want you to pop popcorn. I want you to bring a sheet, put it on the floor, put the popcorn popper right in the middle, bring a little butter, some plastic bowls and stuff, and just pop popcorn. And I mean, I wish you could see the look on these young women's faces. You want us to do what? I said, hey, trust me, I've been around this campus a long time. I do understand men, I do understand women. And so they came back to tell me their tale. They went to a dorm, they popped popcorn. How fast does the smell of popcorn travel? About as fast as the speed of light, okay? And all of a sudden, these guys are up there in the dorm, they're smelling that popcorn, and like bears awaking from a long winter's nap, you know, they come down. And then, of course, the guys then turned tables, went to their dorm one night, and did the same thing. So you have to be creative in today's society because everybody cocoons. People don't go out and mix anymore. That's why eharmony.com is so popular. By the way, Neil Clark Warren, who started that, is a friend of mine. I shouldn't tell you this, but I will. He gave me 9,000 shares of his company because when everybody told him this is never going to work, you know what he did? He kept going. And I told him, I said, Neil, you have a brilliant idea here. He was living out of a suitcase in Dallas, Texas. Today, you know where his home is? He has 3 homes. One of them's in Hawaii, one of them's in California, but his new residence is in a place called Kennebunkport. And guess who his neighbor is? Big George. Okay? This is a guy who didn't give up. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be talking to business people about leadership, okay? You can't give up. You've got to be creative. But you also have to know who you are. Because, ladies, I'm telling you, us guys will use you like nobody, okay? We will play you up one side and down the other because we are so driven by such things as sight, by our sexual inclinations. I mean, anybody who's married here, answer this question. How long does it take to get your husband frisky? 1.7 seconds or less. He looks at you, and this guy is raring to go, okay? There's women here who are like crock pots. You can plug them in, but they ain't going to heat up for a long time. And they got agendas. You know, they got to go through hills and valleys, plateaus, mesas. And check this out. What they like on Tuesday, they don't like on Saturday. I see there's men in this room who will eat the same breakfast till they die. They'll wear the same shirt. Only got 2 spots on it. What's the problem? Women aren't like that, okay? So for those of you who are single, walk carefully. And let me say this as clear as I can. Keep your pants on, okay? As soon as the relationship becomes sexual, okay? As soon as it becomes sexual, because a man is so blinded by it, I'm telling you, you don't know what you're really getting. He knows what he's getting, okay? And he likes that, and that keeps him in. There's a spiritual connection in marriage that must be there, okay? The divorce rate, okay? About 1 in 2 that marry today will end in divorce. Average marriage lasts 7 years. Couples who pray together audibly, now that's not he prays and she prays, but they actually sit down and make it a point to pray together on a regular basis. The divorce rate is 1 in 1,052. Now you tell me if there's a spiritual connection to marriage. Of course there is. And marriage, I mean, do you remember before marriage? Before marriage, the lies used to tell each other? Oh, pretty soon we're just going to be in each other's arms. It's going to be just wonderful. We're just going to be able to look at the moon and cuddle and share and communicate. It's going to be just wonderful. You're going to read the Psalms to me at night. No, he's probably going to be reading Song of Solomon, would be a better guess. But this is the expectation, okay, of what marriage is all about. Now, when you write books on marriage, you write things on stages of marriage. Well, what's the next stage? If this is expectation, what's the next stage? Reality. You find out your wife has morning breath that could kill a cockroach at 4.5 feet. Okay? You find out your husband is capable of watching 2 ball games simultaneously, belching in his boxer shorts. Yes, ladies, this is your gift from God. Okay? Now, you move quickly in this because expectation minus reality equals disillusionment. It doesn't take people long to become disillusioned about what they have or what they haven't. And by the way, for those of you who are blending, how many of you are in blended families today? Heads up, hands up, okay? Now, there's something easy. You know, the blended family is a misnomer because they don't blend to begin with. They collide at best. You have his and hers. Oh, you know, I just know that George's children, they really like me and we get along really well. Yeah, until you marry the sucker. And then they will drive a wedge between you like nobody else can do. Now, if you're in a blended family, it takes 3 to 7 years for that blended family to make it, okay? The foundation of the blended family is cemented with a mortar of anger, bitterness, jealousy, hurt, and anger. There's something interesting about that sentence. I used anger twice on purpose because everybody has a psychological chip on your shoulder. Now, for those of you who are single, you've been divorced, you know, whatever. You want to find the perfect husband? Find the guy whose wife died. Okay? He is in a better pool of fish than this guy that's been divorced twice. Do you see what I'm saying? He is a more, on paper, I'm just talking statistics here, he is a much better risk. Now, do you really want somebody like everybody else has? Is that what you really want? Or do you want somebody different? Do you want somebody who's really going to treat you well? Finish this sentence for me. You're in good hands with Allstate. You know how long that thing's been around? Since I was a little boy. And I'm going to die soon. But it's a great thing. You're in good hands with Allstate. That's how a woman wants to feel, like she's loved. So the man who can wipe this woman's tears away, but listen to her story, is the guy that's worth chasing. The guy who's willing to put you before himself. Okay? And I'm telling you, the man who will really take a bullet for you, so to speak, is the guy that'll be there when you discover you got breast cancer. And you need the love and the attention and the comfort that only a husband can give to a wife in that situation. And on top of that, guess what? There's people counting on you staying married. Being married isn't easy. Why? Because women are absolutely weird. They speak a language that most men don't get. They don't come right to the point of things usually. Most women beat around the bushes, okay? The experts tell us you women use 3.5 times the number of words that we men use in a given day. That means by this Thursday, some of you husbands out there are out of words for the entire week. You have used your allotment, okay? Women are like the Energizer Bunny. of communication. They just keep going and going and going and going and going. They love to share. They love to talk. They love to communicate, okay? I was talking to Pastor beforehand. And by the way, if you're a visitor to this church, this is a cool place to hang out. This is one of the greatest churches ever I've ever been in. And they care about ministry. And I just forgot what we were talking about beforehand. What was it? Do you remember? It was something I was going to make a point. I should never say those kind of things. See, I tried to give you a nice compliment. What did it give me? Nothing. I forgot now what I was going to say. That happens all the time. You know, when you're speaking, and I know, Pastor, you can identify with this, you got about 10 ideas in your head at the same time, and sometimes they clash. And if I go outside of my thought pattern, the chance of me getting that back is about 0. And it was probably the most profound thing I was going to say this entire evening. But anyway, I digress. As we go back to these stages, okay, expectation minus reality equals disillusionment. This is where couples get in trouble. Because he isn't everything I thought he would be. She isn't everything I thought she would be. Okay? If you watch Oprah and her gang, oh, you're worth more than that. You're worth more than that, you know. You got to take care of yourself. I spoke to 4,600 women in Southern Illinois. And my first statement to them was, ladies, you need to learn to please your husband. Now, what do you suppose the reaction does to those 4,600 women? This is a Christian group, by the way. Young women in their 30s for the most part. It was like, I felt like there was a vacuum that was going to suck me into the audience. There's one woman, she stood up right and says, excuse me. She's giving me the timeout sign like this. I go, yeah? And she says, excuse me, if I did that, I would lose my identity of who I am as a woman. I'm telling you, this is prevalent in our society today. Some of you believe that. Let me tell you, that is a flat-out lie. It's perpetrated by our culture. Because the reality is, if you want to stay married, you got to learn to please this sucker. And here's the good news. He is simple. I say in my book, Have a New Husband by Friday, think of your husband as a 4-year-old that shaves. He's not a complex individual. He needs to feel needed and wanted by you and respected by you. Those 3 things. Needed and wanted. And by the way, ladies, I'm going to say this as straight as I can. There are many men in this audience who are tired of being reluctantly accommodated in the bedroom by you. Reluctantly accommodated. There's not a man here who says, you know, I love it when my wife says, well, okay, if you have to. My all-time favorite, pull my nightie down when you're through. Oh, that's nice. Give me a break. And I'm telling you that God created us in such a way, He gave me permission to say this. You got any problems, you talk to the Monsignor, okay? But I'm just telling you that God created us in such a way that we are attracted to each other within the confines of what God's holy word says about marriage. And again, you can't just follow your feelings. If you do, gentlemen, you see a woman who really looks good to you in a restaurant, all right? We talked about this a little bit this morning. Now, get in touch with your feelings. This is one hottie woman, okay? Get in touch with your feelings. You got your feelings? As you're watching her walk by? Now follow your feelings. You're going to jail. You can't live like that. And so there's constraints, okay? There are these things called marital vows that we took. You stay in the boundaries. There's a great little verse over in the book of Jude, Jude 21, that says, always stay in the boundaries where God's love can reach and bless you. You know what this world would be like if we all learned to stay in our boundaries? Yeah, that's awesome. You know, it'd be cooler than cool. And so this thing called marriage isn't as complicated as some of us make it out to be. It's pretty simple. But ladies, I'm telling you, you're the key in getting this husband to be puppy dog-like. I mean, he wants to please you. We just get confused because how God made you. It's not, remember this morning I talked about how women lie like dogs? And I shared the story about my wife who lies to me daily about everything. What time are you going to be home? I'll be home early. I'll be home early. By the way, she went to our church this morning, I wondered if she was going to come here. We got my brother and his wife and my sister in town, and they got up late and decided to go to our church, okay? Now, I got home from here about, it's probably close to 1:45 by the time I got home, okay? My brother's there by himself. And he says, hey, where are the women? I go, hello? How long have you been married? He said, well, our church is over at noon. Jack, they're women. They're not going to be home till 4 o'clock. I was 12 minutes off. Well, after church, they just stopped and had a little something over at Sauce. They love sauce, just a little salad. And then, of course, they hit Park Mall. That was the end of the day. What time are you going to be home, honey? Oh, we'll be home early. They lie like dogs. Women have an entirely different world they live in. But check this out. Their world is closer to reality than ours. That's what you have to understand, because women thrive on relationships. I'm going to tell those business guys tomorrow morning, hopefully I'll remember this, run everything by your wife first. Why? Because she's closer to life than you are. Because in a man's world, we're arm's length. Hey, how you doing? High five, fist bump, or the common, that's my favorite. That covers a lot of sins. That means everything from, how you doing? Nice weather. Cubs are going to win this year. Liar. Cubs won it all in 1908. Don't forget it. But anyway, there's some humor in how God created us. I always say he's the original humorist because God said, and the two shall become one. You want to try something? Try to become one in marriage. Sandy and I live in a 2-story house. Her story, my story. We see life completely different. And we're on different time schedules. I'm a morning person. I'm up early in the morning. With joy in my heart, quite frankly. I like the morning. I like the early morning. She just found out a couple of years ago there was an 11 a.m. She gets up in the morning. She's a very pretty woman, by the way. Very pretty. But when she gets up in the morning, she's got issues. And it takes her a while just to come to. And she's got this apricot stuff. I ain't kidding you. It looks like poppy seed dressing. It's in an 8-sided jar, and she puts it on her face, and that's how she revives and gives a chance for the beauty to come forth. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm up in the morning, put a baseball cap on, my shorts, same shorts I had on yesterday, T-shirt, brush my teeth, I'm ready. I'm gone. I'm out the door, okay? That's being a man. I spit. I do a lot of things she would never do. She'll say things like, oh, don't do that, that's gross. That's gross. I know it's gross. What am I supposed to do, swallow it? You should have heard her. The other day I talked about getting a gun. You should have heard her. Freaked out. I sat her down. I said, Mrs. Uppington, listen to me. I had a gun when I was 10 years of age. I had my own gun. I had a .410 shotgun. Do you know that when I was in school, we would take our guns to school? How many of you believe that? We did. You'd walk into school with your gun. You'd say to the lady, hey, would you hold on to this? I'm going pheasant hunting after school. Nobody batted an eye. But do you think any of us in Williamsville High School ever thought of turning a gun on our classmates? That never entered our mind. We'll talk about that tomorrow night, how the world has changed. It's changed big time. But anyway, back to marriage and these wonderful little expectation, reality, disillusionment, license. Because my needs aren't being met, now I can go do my own thing. Now, if you're in that position tonight, you need to rethink this and you need some prayer in your life because you're really in a rough spot. And I know that your needs aren't being met. I understand that. And he might be super rat, ultra rat, whatever. But you know what? The stakes are high. And it goes back to the fact, I wish in this business I could name people whose God has provided me an opportunity to help them put their marriage back together. Rock stars, who you'd notice right off the bat. Actors, actresses from all over this world. I've been a part of putting those things together. And sometimes you see these marriages, you say, this marriage doesn't have a chance at making it. And I've seen God work in people's lives where the hearts of man and the hearts of women change. And they get their life together, and they realize there is a spiritual basis. They become submissive. Now, there's a word half of you hate. Submissive to God and submissive to each other. And this goes back to, well, let me show you what the Scripture says. I mean, I'm no preacher. We got a preacher right down here. If I make a mistake, he'll say, Kevin, you made a mistake, okay? But here it is. You wives must submit to your husband's leadership in the same way you submit to the Lord, for a husband is in charge of his wife, the same way Christ is in charge of his body, the church. He gave his very life to take care of it and be its Savior, so you wives must willingly obey your husbands in everything, just as the church obeys Christ. And you husbands show the same kind of love to your wives as Christ showed to the church when he died for her. So I call him the equal opportunity employer because he what? He speaks to women, then he turns around and speaks to men. But see, I'm telling you, that man next to you would take a bullet for you so you could keep breathing. That is, if he really loves you. I love to cite the terrible day, January 11th, January 8th, 2011. One night over here at Safeway, Gabrielle Giffords and 18 other people were shot, and 6 of them killed. And I love part of that story. It never got the headlines, but there was a guy there who was in his 70s, and when he pulled out that gun and started shooting, he took his wife like this, like an illegal play in basketball, and tucked his wife right behind him. And he took a bullet right here in the chest. That man's in heaven today, and his wife is still breathing. But see, that husband, who's not as communicative, and you talk to your girlfriend about him, hey, let's get one thing straight. He is not your girlfriend. He's your husband. He doesn't have he has no friends. He's got associates. He's got his fishing buddies, his hunting buddies, and they'll go hunt. They'll hunt, they draw, and they get to go hunt, Bambi's grandfather or something out in northern Arizona. They'll sit in a tree. Your husband will sit in a tree half the day with a gun, waiting for this animal to come over the hill. He's got his little walkie-talkie. He's talking to his buddy. They talk about every hour. Anything? Nothing. I got a friend who sells insurance in town, Joe Robinette, State Farm agent. We've known Joe and Terry for years. We go to their house for dinner, okay? Cook steaks out in the backyard. Have a nice evening. Driving home. She starts on me. She, me, Mrs. Uppington. I call Mrs. Uppington, by the way, Mrs. Uppington, because she's the classy one of the two of us. Okay? She loves restaurants with 4 and 5 forks. 1 fork is plenty for me. And we're driving home one night, and she says to me, what's new with Joe? Nothing. And she says, what do you mean nothing? I said, nothing. She said, well, you've been with him all night. I'm getting a little defensive. So what do you guys talk about? Nothing. Well, you're out there a long time in the backyard. What'd you talk about out there? I told you, nothing. Well, what do you guys say to each other? Nothing. We use sentences, short ones. Now she's mad. She's mad because I'm not telling her everything we're talking about. What do we talk about? We talk about U of A football, basketball, whatever the season. I mean, that's sort of where We drift to. We don't talk about anything. Once in a great while. Now, I'm in a small group. Through an old church I went to, our group is 30 years old. Now, how many men, here's a question for you men. How many of you men would like to go to counseling this week? Pastor, I don't see a one. Now, if I ask that same question to women, oh, counseling, what a great idea. I'll have to buy a new pair of shoes. But God is my judge. Speaking of shoes, I told my wife on this trip, I said, honey, I just got a small rental car. It's really expensive in this little town. We're renting the cars. I just want to get by with a small car. And can you just bring one suitcase? Oh, yeah. Oh, no problem. I'm telling you, they lie like dogs. So it's time to put the stuff in the car. And I go out there to the front door, and God bless her, she's ready, which is a little unusual. But she's got 2 suitcases there. You know, if you tell somebody something, and then they sort of blow you off as a man, this is when you turn into a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, okay? I go, hey, honey, I told you, only 1 suitcase. She said, I only got 1 suitcase. Let's do it in Spanish. Uno, dos. So I go back there. We got her by the arm, bring her right out the front door. Honey, let's go through this one more time. 1, 2. Says, honey, that one doesn't count. That's my shoes. We have those conversations. Lie like dogs. Different from us for sure. I told you, Sandy is up half the night. Books are some of her best friends. She's a firstborn. She devours books. She likes mysteries, okay? So wouldn't it be nice if God, knowing my heart and mind, would give me this woman to share life with, okay? Who went to bed early, frisky as a blue jay in spring. That would be ideal. But to show you God had a great sense of humor, what's he give me? A raccoon. She's nocturnal. She's up half the night. I mean, there's some nights now, I just get up when she starts her little reading marathon, because it goes on forever. I just get up and go in the spare bedroom now. I just take my little pillow with me and chill in the other room, because she'll be up half the night. We see life completely different. She likes the 4 forkers and the 5 forkers, okay? She loves those things. I love the 1 forker. There used to be a restaurant in Tucson called the Tack Room. How many of you remember the Tack Room? It was way out on the east side, and it cost a fortune to go there. I mean, it was expensive, and we didn't have any money to begin with back in those days anyway, and so it was a big thing to go there, but she would love those kind of places, okay? And again, I would like the simple things. Well, restaurants are sort of interesting. Caruso's. I love speaking in Tucson, Pastor. This is great. Caruso's on South 4th Avenue. You ever been there? It's been around since the time of dirt, okay? I've gone there since 1962. I've never, ever, ever ordered anything other than lasagna. Lasagna al forno with garlic toast. It's great lasagna. Since 1964, Mrs. Uppington and I have gone to Caruso's. With God as my judge, I've never ordered anything but. Now, we walk in there, the first thing she wants to see is the menu. Then she wants to hear the specials. She always wants to hear the specials. Then she wants to know, what does that woman have over there? She always wants to know what other women are having. I don't understand why you would care what someone else is having. And then she starts on me. She says, what are you going to have, Leman? What are you going to have? And I turned to her and I said, well, I was thinking about trying lasagna tonight. It sounded good. Then she starts on me. She says, why don't you have this? And she pointed one night the chicken cacciatore or whatever it's called. I said, I don't want that. Yeah, but if you got that, then I could have a little bite of that. That's my food. I don't share my food with anybody. I like being a man, you know? I don't have to share my food with anybody. When I go to my friend's house, I don't have to bring them a little gift. And I can do my nails at a red light with my front teeth. There's something nice about being a man. But lots of times what happens is a woman will see this man and she'll try to feminize him. And we feminize men in our society big time. I'm telling you, men need to be men and women need to be women. It's the differences that gives us that natural inclination to be drawn toward each other. And you become one. But ladies, you have to understand a few things. Number one, he's simple, okay? He needs to feel needed and wanted by you. He's not your girlfriend. Now let me give you some clues. In fact, listen to what I'm about to say. If you have a relationship with anyone in your family, that's not a good one. That could be your son or your daughter, okay? Your husband or your wife, your mother or your father, your uncle or aunt who lives with you, your grandmother or grandfather, anybody. Listen to this. This is almost profound. If you want to see that relationship change, stop asking that person questions. Don't ask him any questions. Well, excuse me, Dr. Leman, but when our daughter Melissa comes home from school, I always ask her, how was your day, honey? Okay, let's go through that drill. How was your day at school, honey? Fine. What'd you do in school today? Nothing. Teenager, where you been? Out. What'd you do? Nothing. If you want your kid to talk to you, don't ask him questions. Men don't like questions, okay? The interesting thing is you can say to your husband, Harold, tell me more about that. And he'll tell you. And his defenses won't go up. But we shut down. And by the way, when your husband gets mad, ladies, what does he do? There's a few idiots that throw things, but very few. Most of us as men, when we get mad, we get quiet. And we go under our turtle-like shell, and we ain't coming out. You get the biggest pitchfork in the history, but we ain't coming out. We're just going to sit there. We'll wait you out. We're money ahead by saying nothing. Now, if you're the critical-eyed person, and you always have something to say about your husband, and you evaluate him, you judge him, he's not going near you. He's going to avoid you, okay? So if you don't have a love affair with your husband, somebody else will. Those are strong words, but it's true. If you look at the research, that's exactly what happens. So the two shall become one. There's something wonderful about these two people who are smart enough to stand up and be a married couple and to try to have this intimate connection. That intimate connection, by the way, is you could be thousands of miles apart and not be able to communicate for whatever reason, and you come together again, and it's like you didn't miss a beat. I've got a good friend. In fact, he's my best friend probably in all of Tucson. He's so blessed. He's got this wife who goes to sporting events with him. Wow, somebody said. Yeah. Wouldn't you like that chick for your wife, huh? Wouldn't that be cool? We're sitting, yeah. Oh, you're in trouble. You just got the look, man. That's okay. Celibacy's a good thing. Don't worry about it. But we're at a ball game. We're at a ball game one night, and we're getting beat, football. We're beating like a drum to UCLA. I'll never forget it. She laid down on the stadium seats in Arizona Stadium. Laid down, flat out laid. Well, there was a lot of room because almost everybody left. We're still there. I'm thinking, no, we're down 40. There's a comeback. We could have a comeback. And she looks at me and she says, what inning is it? Well, honey, inning is baseball. I mean, we are so different. And yet we've been blessed with 45 years of great marriage. A professor friend told me years ago, he said, Kevin, he said, listen, you can do different things together as a couple. Back in the old days, I had a boat, and I used to go down to Pina Blanca Lake and Patagonia Lake, and I'd fish. And I had sleeper seats in my boat. Well, Mrs. Uppington, before I met her, I love fishing, love the outdoors. Love it. The first time a fish came in the boat, I thought she was going to leave the boat. Get the thing away from me! I'm like a little kid. Look at the fish. I don't want to see the fish. I like your fish. That's real good. Just keep it away from me. She loves camping. I took her up to Globe, Arizona. What's that lake? Is it San Carlos that's up there? And I took her to San Carlos. We pitched a tent. She loves camping. We didn't spend the night in the tent. We spent it at a Ramada Inn somewhere up there. I mean, I challenged her on it one day. She said, well, I thought I would like camping. She would tell you I tried to pitch the tent with some cow flops around. That didn't go over real big. We still laugh about that to this day. Completely different people. See life completely different. And yet, a great marriage. It's the differences that make you a couple. These guys that are blessed, that have a wife that'll go to a ball game with them, those are the luckiest dudes in the world. I'm here to tell I'm envious of those guys, okay? How many of you have those wives, by the way? Yeah, 4 of you. That's what I thought. Yeah. But you know, let women be women, let men be men, and we are called to become one. Not an easy task to do, for sure. But here's something. As I said earlier, you run everything by your wife first, gentlemen. Why? Because she's closer to life than you are. Okay? And so many times, and I've had men challenge me, like, excuse me, Leman, she doesn't know anything about civil engineering. Well, you're right. She doesn't know anything about civil engineering. But she knows more about life, sir, than you ever thought about. Because she thrives on relationships. And anybody in business, you tell me, what's life all about? It's relationships. It's the skills that you were born with. One of the joyous times of my life, people ask me, what are the highlights of your marriage? And the births of the children for sure, and we've had some great moments and some great opportunities to travel and things like that. But when my son Kevin graduated from college down in Florida, he wanted to go up to Disney World, okay? And there were 9 of us. And I said, hey, no problem, we'll go to Disney World. So we go up to Disney World, and I walk in the place, and the first thing that greets me when you go up there to buy the ticket, I mean, I didn't realize they have these what they call island hoppers, where you go to 2 different places. $180 a pop. $180 a piece? I got 9 people. I just do a little round number stuff. I go, holy crow, that's short of $2,000 to go to an amusement park. And I'll tell you, it was an appointed time for me because the Lord gave me good vision, because there was a little sign to my left, and it was a long way away, but I thought it said media relations. And I moved toward it, and I started moving. She said, Leamy, where are you going? I said, honey, I'm just going to go over. Leamy, no, I know you. Hey, just fork out the money. We need to go in here. I said, just give me 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. That's all I need, 10 minutes. I walk up, and there's a sign, media relations. I have a Channel 7 golf shirt on like this, with a little circle with a 7 in it. KBW TV. But God is my judge. I walk up to this thing. There's a young kid there, about 20 years of age. His name, Daniel. His hometown, Buffalo, New York. Thank you, Lord. Hi, Daniel, hi. Hey, listen, I'm wondering if you could help me out. Now, notice my words. I wonder if you could help me out, okay? That's a door opener in any situation. Hey, listen, I wonder if you could help me out. Get some comp tickets to get myself and my family into Disney World. Also, we have a procedure. You probably know the procedure. Those things have to be faxed. The request has to be in 2 weeks before. Oh, Daniel, I thoroughly understand. My son graduated from college. It's a big day in his life. He said, hey, Dad, is there any way you could drive up to Disney World? I'm just trying to make my son happy. Just then, the boss comes in. The boss, the supervisor. He's got one of these things in his ears, you know. Got a little hardware here. And I say, oh, hey, Daniel, is that the boss? And I'm saying it loud enough so the boss can hear it. Is that the boss? Yeah. He says, all right, everybody in here, good behavior. Stop picking your nose. Here comes the boss. Remember, we're into public relations here. Before long, I'm getting dialogue with these 3 different people who are watching every word I say. Now, I'm going to make this as short as I can. The kid looks up at his boss, and the boss has heard everything I said. And all I did was have a little fun with his birth order, because this guy was a firstborn, and I guessed it right. I could tell by how the guy looked he was a firstborn. I nailed Daniel as the youngest son in his family, which he was. So I'm 2 for 2. So they're listening to what I have to say. And Daniel looks up at his boss like, what am I supposed to do? And the guy says, help the doctor out. The kid hands me four tickets, $180 a piece, into Disney World, okay? I said to him, Daniel, Do you see that tall, slender woman over there under that palm tree that's got her arms crossed like this and looks a little angry? That's Mrs. Uppington. And actually, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, but I actually have 9 people with me. Now, I don't make these stories up, folks. And he looks at me like, hello? I just gave you 4 free tickets for $180. What do you want? He looks back at his supervisor, and his supervisor goes, he peels off 5 more tickets, folks. I now have 9 tickets. They're in my back pocket. I'm about to share with you the most wonderful, exotic, fulfilling feeling I've had in 45 years of marriage. As I walk back toward Mrs. Uppington, whose eyes have narrowed, and she's looking at me and said, well, Mr. Big Shot, show me the tickets. I fanned them. It was wonderful. It was wonderful for me. Now, baby of the family, salesman, okay, sell dead rats for a living. My older sister, she would never do that in a million years. You do life by the book. You go in the entrance and you go out the exit, okay? That's how you do life. You do what's expected. You read directions when you put something together. There are people like that in this world who will follow directions. That doesn't happen to be my gift. Now, Mrs. Uppington's one of those people, okay? Now, again, I just want you to understand that you all came out of a different family. When 2 people walk down this flowers-strewn aisle, it's not 2 people who married, it's at least 6. Where are you getting the 6 from? You marry your in-laws. So whatever you brought to the marriage, okay, you learned in your family. You learned how to relate to people, especially your mom to you, dad, or husband, okay? Daddy-daughter relationship, mother-son relationships. So there are men here who are paying for the lousy relationship your bride had with her dad, okay? There are women here who are paying for the lousy relationship that your husband had with guess who? His mom. That's why family's important, to have good, healthy family, okay? So when you're, those who put their hand up when you're a blended family, when you 2 got married, there was at least 10 people getting married. Because now you got his, hers, ours, the first husband, the second. You've been a 3-time winner or loser, depending upon how you look at it. I mean, that's why things get so difficult today. So is it easier in a first marriage? Yes. I mean, Andy Williams and Frank Sinatra sang that song years ago, Love is Lovelier the Second Time Around. I got news for you. It's tougher the second time around, just because so many things get complicated. But as a couple, you must remain shoulder to shoulder, or the children in that union will drive a wedge between you. So, if you want to talk to your husband, ladies, again, you eliminate the word why. You want to slip him a commercial announcement, okay? And by that I mean you might say to a husband, honey, I might be way out in left field here. I may not know what I'm talking about here. Then slip him that commercial announcement. Whatever that is you want to tell your husband, slip it to him easily. Now, if you say, all right, listen up, Bubba, this is what's got to happen. Good luck, because he's going to shut down. Again, think of him as a 4-year-old that shaves. In fact, we talk sometimes about a husband being like a seal. And when you say something nice about him, especially in front of other people, I mean, you know, you've thrown him a 3-pound fish. Your husband, in all probability, does not have anybody affirm him during a given week, okay? And so everybody needs affirmation, everybody. And yet there's people in this world, I mentioned it this morning, you know, there's people who are unteachable. And you can't teach people who know everything, anything about life, can you? You want to be teachable. So when your wife is talking to you, gentlemen, you listen to her. You say, Leman, she speaks in volumes. I understand that. She needs to learn that you need the USA Today version. Get to the point. What's the problem? See, most of us as men are fixers, ladies. So when you bring a problem to us, our initial reaction is to tell you what to do or to fix it. In my experience with women aren't like that. They don't want you to fix it. They just want you to understand what they're up against. If they got little ankle biters around them all day long, I mean, ankle biters, they can drain a woman to the point of no return. You know, just getting the 18-month-old to stop playing in the toilet is a major victory for many a woman, you know. And you finally get the kids in bed. Do you know those nights, the night has finally come to an end, you're just sort of exhausted, and you get in bed. Mrs. Uppington still, to this day, she talks to the bed when she gets in bed at night. She says, "Oh, I love you, bed. Oh." And now she props up a couple little pillows, and now she's got these little reading glasses, and she sits there and she reads. And here's the problem for women today who have small kids. You've worked outside the home. If you're the average woman, got kids under 18, you're bringing home the bacon. You're working, okay? And the problem is you bring home the bacon, but you also fry it. Because in most homes, you're a second shifter. You just keep working. Now, if your husband comes home, he's worked all day, I understand that. But if he comes home and checks out, like many of us men do, and he falls asleep watching Friends reruns, you know, after dinner, he belches a couple times and then night for 2 hours, and you've tucked kids in bed, checked on homework, done all the things you need to do, and there he is, sound asleep on the couch. And you go over and you wake him up. Jack, wake up. You got to get up so you can go to sleep. Jack wakes up. You know that feeling? You know that feeling after a long nap? It's sort of groggy. You know, he comes to and she's still running around the house doing things, and she goes by to check on some laundry. He's had a 2-hour nap. She walks by in her negligee. Here he is. She comes back in the room. Now listen to what he says. "You want to fool around?" What does she say to him? "Do I look like I want to fool around? I'm going to bed." So when a husband comes home, okay, what a wife wants to hear is, "Honey, what can I do to help?" It might be something like, "Just take them away." "Well, honey, where? Safford, anywhere. Just get them out from under." You know, and if you're the stay-at-home mom, you've been around kids all day, I'm telling you, you need a relief pitcher coming through the door, or a big jug of wine or something. I mean, because kids will just wear you, you know. And we'll talk about that tomorrow night. We talk about kids. "He touched me, Mom. He looked at me, Mom. He looked at me." Now there's a criminal offense. He looked at me. But see, kids know how to punch up all of our buttons to keep us needlessly engaged in battle. And some of you snowplow the roads of life for your kids. You coddle your kids too much. You make excuses for your kids. Excuses make kids weaker. Doesn't make them stronger. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. So children have their place. They're like Avis Rent-A-Car. Number 2 in trying harder. But husband and wife come first. That's the primary relationship that must be nurtured in the family. Tell that to a mom who just had a 19.5-incher. Push that little sucker right out the birth canal. 9.5 hours. And all of a sudden, she's acutely aware of how dependent this little body is to her. And they bond, and she breastfeeds. And by the way, breastfeeding, you think is the most natural thing in the world? Not for a lot of women. It's very difficult for a lot of women for a lot of different reasons. And by the way, your health insurance, those people, they throw you out of the hospital in less than 48 hours. And the lactation nurse is nowhere in sight. And all of a sudden, there you are with this little 19.5-incher. It's easy to see why parents just sort of burrow their whole life into this little helpless thing. In the meantime, the husband sort of out in left field, and he gets further and further in left field, okay, as she focuses in on these children. And again, keep in mind, in so many cases, after she's had that baby and she's home for a few weeks, she's back in the workforce. Now you take the kid to the kitty kennel, which is a whole other topic. Don't get me going on that one, okay? Drop them off at the kitty kennel for just 12 hours a day. Now there's a healthy thing for a kid. I'm telling you, the things we do in the name of it's good for us is crazy, okay? We bring kids in this world. We have a responsibility to, A, bring them up right. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it, okay? We'll take a look at that scripture that most of you will flunk if I gave you a essay question on that same thing. But again, kids have their place, but the couple must come first. If you don't nurture the marriage, you're going to be in big time trouble. So we're different, we think differently, and women, check this out. They're not all the same. How many women here would love a back rub or a foot rub tonight from your love of your life? Hands up high. I want people to see this. Okay. Now, if Mrs. Uppington was with us tonight, you wouldn't see her hand in the air. You know why? To quote her, "I don't like being rubbed. Scratch me." She wants to be scratched. Okay? Now, I learned this early in marriage. Oh, and she's got rules. She's got rules. She grew up in the First Baptist Church, number one. That's one of the problems. They got too many rules over at the First Baptist Church. And she learned all the don'ts. Not the do's, she learned all the don'ts, okay? So you talk about scratching her back. This is how you scratch Mrs. Uppington's back, like this. S-shaped, like this. I don't make these things up. This is how she likes it. Oh, on the rule, on top of the nightie only, okay? She loves it backhand, like this. She loves backhand more than S-shape. So you start with S-shape, then you move the backhand. Then she loves it if you scratch here. She loves that. And she really loves it if you just scratch the inside of her hands lightly with my nails like that. Don't start there. If you start there, she says, "I don't like that. That tickles. Start my back." I'm telling you, I'm like a trained seal. Well, that is who I am. That is who I am. So I've learned who she is. I've learned who she is. There's these little hoops you go through. That's who she is. There's a right way to do things. She doesn't like surprises. I love surprises. She hits 55, the speed limit, okay? I'm going to do things right. I'm taking her to Anthony's in the foothills, okay? 4-forker restaurant. Count them. Go there. 4 forks there. I know the 4 and 5 forkers in Tucson. She loves those places. I'm not a great fan. You ever go to a restaurant where the waiters have different colored coats? The regular waiter is sort of in black and white, you know, that kind of thing. And then you got the guy in a red coat and a gray coat. I don't even know the difference. I grew up in Buffalo. I'll have a hot dog. One of those guys, I'm telling you, one night I told a guy, so one more water and I'm punching you out. I'm telling you. They just sort of over-service you. She loves those places. So I take her to the nice place. We're driving home that night, and we pull up next to our house, pitch black, and she says, "Oh, Leamy," she said, "I love tonight. It was just wonderful. There's 2 of us together, and I know the kids are coming over tomorrow night to celebrate, but this was really special. I know it's not your kind of a place, but I love the food. It was exquisite." She used the term exquisite. The food was exquisite. I've never said food is exquisite. And then she said, "Oh, and I love the presentation. I love the presentation." Never said that either. And so I go around, open the door for her, and she puts her arm inside my arm, which is always a good sign. And she turns to me and she says, "Honey," she said, "again, I can't thank you enough for tonight, but I got to tell you, I'm exhausted." What does that mean? That means Mr. Happy is going to bed unhappy. Now, again, I'm walking up to our house. It's pitch black, okay? I know I'm in trouble because we almost up to the door, and all of a sudden the lights get switched on. The door flies open. 3 dozen people yell, "Surprise!" Mrs. Uppington puts her hands over her face like this and starts to cry. And being the real champion she is, she feigns that these are tears of joy. See, I love surprises. I'm a baby of the family. I love surprises. She's a firstborn. Firstborns usually don't like surprises. They're planners, they're organizers, they want to know what's coming. I tell you this because I've written 42 books. I understand women, they're weird. I understand my wife, she's very weird. And yet, I planned that surprise party with all the head knowledge, okay? But I brought out this morning in church, hey, it's got to be more than just the head. You got to have it in the heart. You got to live it, you got to apply it. That was one of the dumbest things I did in marriage, was the surprise party. She doesn't like surprises. So is it easy to get behind the eyes of your mate and see how they see life? No, it's difficult. But here's what makes you women unique. John, would you come over here and just give me a hug? I need a hug. John puts down the newspaper, walks over and goes, and he hugs her. What does she tell herself? She says, well, he hugged me all right, but he only hugged me because I asked him to and not because he really wanted to. One of my favorite stories, I've told this before in this church, but it's worth repeating. We're driving home from one of those 5 forkers, and they come up and ask us if we want dessert, at the restaurant. We told her no, so it's $13.50 for dessert at this place, by the way. And we just looked at each other and said no. Anyway, we're driving home 20 minutes later, and we're driving down River Road, and she turns to me and she says, you want to stop for ice cream? No. 10 seconds later, tears streaming down her face. Streaming down her face. What would you say? What is wrong with you? Exact words, I don't make these things up. Nothing. What do you mean nothing? You're crying, aren't you? I said there's nothing wrong. What is wrong with you? I want to stop for ice cream. So, when your wife looks at you and says, do you want to stop for ice cream? Gentlemen, she is not asking a question. When she says, honey, we need to talk, no words are needed by you. You're in trouble. You've said something wrong. And she's about to tell you what's wrong. Now, here's the kicker. She wants you to know what her needs are without her having to tell you what her needs are. And that is counter every man in this room. Because all of us know, hey, honey, just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. You want me to go out and hunt you a lion? I'll bring you home a lion. I mean, that's who we are. We're like little squirrels that want to please you. Let us go do whatever No, it's not good enough for you. You need to know that we, care about you. I'm to the point, Mrs. Uppy, I can watch something touching on TV to the split second I can tell you when that tear's coming over that eyelid. I mean, we know each other well. And she tolerates me. But I'm telling you, this is a woman that's done some things in life. Driving home one night, pulling my driveway, someone has driven the van completely through the garage door. Backed right through the garage door. Never stopped, right through it. Top of the van is off. What do you do, gentlemen? Do you jump out of the car and start screaming? I'm here to tell you don't do that. You know what you do? You sit there and you study it. And you say, how did she do that? I had 2 teenage drivers at the time, but I knew who did it. Had her handiwork all over it. I was sitting in my car. I was driving a little LeBaron convertible at the time. And my daughter, Chrissy, came out from underneath the door. And she came out and she greeted me. She said, just as I'm getting out of the car, Dad, what are you going to do to her? I went like this, follow me. And I walked in the house, and Sandy was cutting carrots on a board, preparing dinner. And I said, hi, honey, how was your day? Right near the brink of tears, she said, oh, fine. I said, come on, put that away. I'm going to take you out to dinner. Everybody, come on, get in the car. We're going to dinner. We all had to get under the garage door, which looked like it was about its 8th month of pregnancy, by the way. And we had a pile in our car. It was really sort of funny just to see everybody pile in this little convertible. We're sitting on each other's laps. Drove into town, had dinner, came back, didn't say a word. Didn't bring it up at dinner. We walked under it a second time. I walked back to my bedroom, and Chrissy, who was 16 at the time, followed me right to my bedroom. Dad, I thought you were going to do something to Mommy. I said, honey, I did. I loved her. And with the help of State Farm, we got the car fixed, the door fixed. It's metal. In 1970, I had a GTO convertible, a goat, sandalwood yellow, a big 3.2, whatever it was, a big engine, I don't know what it was. Cost $5,500 brand new. Okay? And what was I going to tell you? Something about that guy. Oh, and a guy at the university, a service truck backed into it and put a hole right in it. Brand new, 2 days old. And my friend, Bill Foster, who's been a friend of mine for years, he's associate dean of students at the university, came over. And I was ranting and raving about it. He put his arm around me. He said, hey, Kevin, it's metal. It's metal. You can fix metal. You know, there's things people tell you along life's way that sort of come right into your heart. That's one of them. It's metal. I think that's why years later, when she cleared out that garage door, I dealt with it. I've had a conversation with 2 of my daughters and my wife, and I've tried to get them to come to this agreement. When you hit something, if you could just stop, we could save the family thousands and thousands of dollars. She's also gone to driving school. She's a graduate of driving school. She also had her license suspended in New York State. We live in New York State for only 3 months. She got 3 tickets in 3 months. The letter comes to our house in Arizona in October. I said, honey, your license has been suspended. She said, what? That's ridiculous. What are you talking about? I said, I read this letter to her. Oh, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard of. I did another, oh, I don't believe that. Oh, you got to be kidding me. I was only going 45. Yes, honey, but it says you were going 45 and I'm 25. But God is my judge. I don't share this very often. But I said, Lord, if there's any way she'd get one more ticket when we go back to New York early in the summer, I'd be real thankful. Because I'd pay money to walk in the Chautauqua County Jail and see Mrs. Uppington behind bars for just a second. I'd just like to take one picture of it, Lord, before I come and join you in heaven. To see this perfect firstborn behind the bars for just a split moment would be a great joy. But you know, people say, do you know, does your wife know that you talk about her the way you talk about her? Yes, she does. And there's certain stories I can't tell about her if she's in the audience. Fortunate for you tonight, she is not in the audience. And this is a woman who, again, she grew up in the First Baptist Church. Rules are very important to her, okay? Now, we live in the desert. You know how hot it is in this place. What do my wife's nighties look like? What are they made of? Flannel, right. 5/8 inches thick flannel. I have plywood in my garage that's thicker than some of those things she had. She had nightie once that had feet in them. Feet in the nightie. And no trap door. I mean, once she put that sucker on, did you ever see that sign that said, don't even think of parking here? That would be Mrs. Uppington. Well, we're up in Toronto, Canada, celebrating our anniversary. I think anniversaries are worth celebrating, okay? And we're up there, and I took her to the Phantom of the Opera at the Pantages Theater. And the next night was our anniversary, and I found out what is the best knockdown, 5-star, 5-forker in all of Toronto. I got reservations, 7:30 reservations. I like to eat at 5 o'clock. We called it supper in Buffalo. And so she's getting ready, and you got to wear a tie, and I don't wear ties. So I got a tie on, a sport coat on. I'm as good looking as I can get. And I'm walking up and down, pacing up and down. She's in the John getting ready. Well, one of my spiritual gifts is yelling. So I'm saying, hey, honey, come on, we're not going to hold it. We got to get over there. Get out. Come on, we got to go. I'll be right there, sweetheart. They lie like dogs. 10 minutes later, I'm still walking back and forth. Finally, she comes out, and she walks out in this see-through nightie. And I'm going, how come? Oh, wow. And all of a sudden there's a pound on the door, pound, pound, pound. And she does a 180 back to John. She's gone. I mean, I'm like a deer in a highway. I mean, I really didn't know what to do. I hear this noise. I go, what is going on? I got a sport coat on, Tom. Going, she's see-through. The Baptist in a see-through. So I go over to the door, and to this day, I don't know what the guy first told me, okay? And finally he says, sir, I've got your dinner here. Can I bring it in? I go, oh, sure, come on, bring it in. And he brings a thing with this little cart, gives me the leather thing, and I sign my name, he's gone. I'm telling you, it was like it was choreographed. And she came out, okay? This time she goes over and gets 2 little candles, okay? I'm still like, I don't even know what to say to the woman. I'm going, this is not the woman I married, okay? And she comes over, got these little candles, and she goes, come up to me like this, and she caresses my face with 3 fingers on each side. And she says, Leamy, she said, it's okay. She said, I just thought it'd be nice if we ate in tonight. I said, okay. And that's all the information you're going to get about that evening. But I'm telling you that is not Mrs. Uppington's style. Years ago, 1981, there was a woman who wrote a book called The Total Woman. And somebody will help me out with her name. Anybody remember who wrote that book? The Total Woman. 1981. It revolutionized some things. People in the church were talking about it because this woman talked about the fact, and she encouraged, this is a Christian book, by the way, she encouraged Christian women to meet their husband at the door, wrapping themselves in cellophane. Well, you can imagine how that went over in the church in 1981, okay? Well, anyway, back in those days, I was a dean of students at the U of A, and my wife had called me, and it was a strange call. She called me late in the afternoon. She said, honey, what time are you going to be home? Well, again, I'm a man, okay? I'm about as predictable as they come, you know. What do you mean, what time are you going to be? I'll be home. Well, actually, I said, no, I'll be home. Actually, yeah, I'll be home a little early tonight. She said, what do you mean? What time are you going to be? I said, what's the big deal? She said, oh, nothing. I just want to, I got to go by. I thought, what the heck is going on? Well, as it turned out, I got delayed at the university, and I didn't get home till about 6:30. I was like an hour overdue. And I pulled up in the driveway. I knew something was off right off the bat because the little kids were not in front to help me drive the car up the driveway. And I walked into our home. Elevator music was on. Table was set for 2 with the good dishes that don't bounce back when you drop them. And then I saw this red yarn, thick red yarn on the back of the door, down to the door, masking tape with a note written in red lipstick. And it said, follow this red string and you'll find a beautiful thing. So I threw down my briefcase, and I followed the red yarn into the bathroom, our bathroom, and into a little drawer. And I found another note, and it said, not here, dummy, try the bedroom. Well, I walked in, and there, wrapped in cellophane, is the bride of my youth. And I got to tell you the truth. It was not a pretty sight. The poor woman was sweating like a hog. And you think cellophane would be easy to get off a body. I'm here to tell you, it is not easy. Not a wet, clammy body, it is not. I had to go get the little rose cutter that was out in the kitchen drawer to get that sucker off. And the first thing that happened, quite frankly, was this woman took a shower. But you know, I'm telling you that this part of life is important. You have to understand how important sexual fulfillment is for a man. And for a lot of women, and this goes back to how God has created us as men and women. Look at the sexual response of a man. The sexual response. What's it like? It's a spit in the ocean, to put it bluntly, okay? Now, look at the sexual response of a woman. Completely different. Completely different. You ever see the movie When Harry Met Sally? The restaurant scene? I'll have what she had. Now that response, who is created in such a way to enjoy sex more, a man or a woman? A woman, big time, big time. but how difficult it is for women to, quote, have that kind of relationship because she needs this guy who is like the conductor of the orchestra. Because everything has to come together in such a way for that woman to be able to enjoy that intimate moment in marriage. I do The View. You ever waste your time watching The View? They talk about their partners. They ask me questions. I'm out there. The best book I ever wrote is a book called Sheet Music. It's a sex book for couples. One day in Barnes & Noble, I got inspired. I looked at all these titles. And I thought, man, we perverted sex in every possible way. Wouldn't it be cool to write a book for married people? And so they refer to partners, and I would take their question and say, it's really important in marriage. And all I did was reframe it. I didn't beat them over the head or share the 4 spiritual laws. But there's something unique and wonderful about these two people who love each other, who are married, who can have that intimate connection and enjoy a great sex life. I mean, that's pretty good, strong stuff if you got that happening. But I'm telling you, in most marriages across the board, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen well because most of us as men are lousy lovers. You need to listen to your wife. You need to be attentive to your wife. When you take the garbage out without being asked, that's foreplay. When you're in Bash's or Safeway and you use your cell phone and say, honey, I'm at the store, do you need anything? That's foreplay. That says, I care about you in all things. When you take your wife's hand and say, honey, could we pray about that? I'll show you how stupid I am. I said to my wife one day, I said, honey, would you make me a list of things that make me a better husband? You know what she said? Sure. I don't like the way she said sure. And and the first thing she said on that list, I remember this the best. She said, when I don't feel good, take the kids to church anyway. Now, how many of you admit when mama goes down, the whole family goes down? Okay? For men trying to be a mom, boy, that's a tough thing for a lot of us. When Sandy had a store, she had a store on Grant Road, a retail store with our oldest daughter called Shabby Hattie Antiques. And people came from miles around to buy her antiques. And she, very artistic, very good at what she did. And I'd try to cook dinner. Try to have dinner on the table. And it's funny how that worked out because I don't know, how do you women get things to come out all at the same time? That was my big dilemma whenever I cooked. And I wanted to surprise her and have dinner on the table when she walked in. And it was never ready on time. And so I'd say things like, all right, everybody come to the table. We're going to have corn. And then 10 minutes later, all right, everybody come back. We're going to have potato. And finally, the dead chicken parts are now ready. Come on in, And one day she goes to Costco and she gets this pork tenderloin. I'm telling you. Knock down, drag out, good pork tenderloin over at Costco. And I knew she put soup on it. But I wanted to surprise her. See, I love the surprise thing. But I couldn't remember what kind of soup she put on it. But I didn't want to call her. So I thought it was chicken noodle. So I went and I got chicken noodle soup and I put it in there, $3.50, did everything right, put the chicken noodle soup on it. By the way, later I discovered it wasn't chicken noodle. It was onion soup. Well, the problem is, it came out, it looked like there were maggots all over it. It looked like little white worms. And no one would eat it. We still laugh about that today. But you know what? She'll still come up and she'll give me a hug and she'll say, kiss. She'll say, honey, you got an A for effort. We still laugh about it. Nobody ate it. Okay, I'll be clear about that. But see, a woman wants to know that you care about her, that you care about everything about her, and you love her just the way she is. But if you got that critical eye, you got that critical spirit, I see some of you who have kids, okay, who start a lot of projects and don't finish them. These are the kids who draw pictures and tear them up before their eyes, okay? And they set you up to say, well, honey, why'd you do that? Well, I don't like that. Or these are the kids who, if they don't color in the lines, they're done. And these kids grow up to be adults. These are the people who are always going to hit home runs, but they never do. These are the people who tread water in life. They're big on the talk, they're short on the walk. They're a dime a dozen. But you know what? Those people usually grow up with critical-eyed parents. And the problem is, if you have a critical-eyed parent in your background, you're going to should on yourself, as I like to say, and should on other people. And you're always communicating to other people to jump up, jump higher, jump down. You know, God doesn't treat us like that. He says, as dumb and stupid as you are, Kevin Leman, I love you just the way you are. All I want you to do is love me. And if you love me in here, in my heart, in your heart, then we're cool. It's as simple as that. But that critical eye, if you're one of those husbands who's always giving your wife the cheap shot, I'm telling you, she's not going to respond to you. And here's the irony. What makes you good in your work as an engineer? Where are engineers here? I'll pick on you engineers. Okay. And you architects, any architects in the place? By the way, architects could not write a sentence if you asked them to. They'll block print it. So will the engineers that are here. But what makes you a good engineer, which makes you a good watchmaker, which makes you a good English teacher or an accountant, anywhere where perfection is paid off, that same skill works against you in your relationships with those you love. Gentlemen, you're lucky enough to have a wife who cooks. They're getting hard to find, okay? You sit down to dinner, and as only you can say, hey, what's with the broccoli? You found the flaw, okay? You get paid for finding flaws as you write computer programs for the county or the city. You found the flaw. It won't be rewarded. You might be wearing broccoli shortly. Do you see what I'm saying? So this thing called marriage, is it simple? It's simpler than most people think it is, for sure. But a couple things for you men to understand. Number one, affectionately love your wife. Ask her opinion on things. Listen to me. Ask her opinion about things that you should be doing in life. She's a much better judge of that. Be interested in what she's interested in. Whatever her interest is. I'm sitting there. I sit and watch Project Runway. Have you ever watched? How many men here have watched Project Runway? Yeah. Well, those are a few people have good sex lives and the rest don't. Commit to listening to her. Commit to listening to her. Don't tell her what to do. Okay? Just listen to her. Discover her love language. Her love language. Every woman has a love language. My friend Gary Chapman wrote that wonderful little book. Talks about physical touch, quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, and gifts. Mrs. Uppington is the great gift giver of all. She's a gift giver. I'm a quality time person, okay? If you look at your love languages as husbands and wives in this room, you have different love languages. What does your husband complain about, ladies? Whatever he complains about, that's his love language. What does your wife complain about, gentlemen? Whatever she complains about, she's telling you that's her love language. She wants to be loved in those terms, okay? We do a cruise once a year in the Caribbean called Couples of Promise. You're welcome to come. In fact, we've opened it up to singles for next year. It's rodeo week next year. You can come on our cruise. And she's handing out envelopes on our cruise a couple of years ago to people. And I go, hey, well, you know, and Debbie confides in me, tells me what's going on. She's handing out massages to people. You go get a massage, okay? She handed out 9 of them to people, to couples, to go get a massage, okay? They're $115 a pop. I'm going, hey, honey, this isn't licorice. This isn't pretzel sticks. That would never enter her mind. Oh, no, it's just a little something. I just love people. She loves people. She had no boundaries in her loving people. Now, I'm telling you, she needs me. I need me. Our checkbook needs me. You know what I'm saying? And anybody who knows me they'd tell you I'm a generous person, okay? I'm a giver. I'm not a taker, okay? I don't like to ask anybody for anything. But that's Mrs. Uppington. To you women, I would say, understand he's not your girlfriend, okay? He's your husband, okay? Realize he's like a 4-year-old that shaves. He's simple, needed, wanted by you, and respected. Those things are in line. He's one happy dude. Be assertive in some of those intimate areas of life. Do something different. Kidnap the sucker. You know, find a reason to take his car. You say, that costs money. So do TV sets, okay? Flat screen TVs cost a lot of money still, okay? Invest in your marriage. Marriage is like a delicate plant. You want to invest in something? Invest in something. That's why this church does things like this, because they think it's good teaching. We can get this teaching all the time. about just how simple this thing is called marriage. And again, I go back to this basic tenet that there are people who are really counting on you to stay married. So, is there a spiritual basis for marriage? Of course there is. And if they have that, you get that intimate connection, I mean, that's just icing on top of the cake. But how different we are. Who thinks more about sex and marriage, men or women? Men. By how many more times does your husband think about sex in a day? There's the question. Today's the Sabbath. Let's start with today. How many times do you think your husband, how many more times do you think your husband thought about sex today than you did, ladies? This is multiple choice. You can pick your number. Twice as much? 5 times as much? 10 times as much? 33 times as much? Answer? 33 more times. In a day. You don't believe that? It's true. I shared that with Mrs. Uppington. She said, "That's sick." One woman told me, she said, "Well, I thought about it, but only because he brought it up." That's who men are. Men are driven in that area. You say, "Leman, you missed our marriage 100%. We're 180 degrees different." That's true. 10 to 15% of you are completely switched, where it's the wife who's the aggressor in the sexual area, and the man isn't. Are there reasons for that? Yes, there are reasons for that. Everybody is not the same. All women are not the same. I was talking about shoppers. You know, I got 4 daughters. 3 of them are shoppers, and one of them's a bagger. One of them goes in and bags what she wants, comes out, she's done. The other are very stereotypical. Are all men the same? No, all men are not the same. Men are very different. Your job, ladies, is to understand who this man is, what his needs are. This scripture, and again, you be a heathen, listen to this one. Honor Christ by submitting to each other. You got to know who you're leading. You need to know all our idiosyncrasies. I don't like that. I learned that early in our marriage. "What do you think you're doing?" she says. "What are you doing?" What do you mean, what am I doing? Question and answer period? I thought it'd be a little give and take here, babe. You know, that's who she is. I mean, she's conservative as the day is long. So, who she is. Be nice to see her get out of the shower. You know what I see? Holiday Inn. But she surprised the socks out of me so many times in life because she knows her Leamy. And she knows what Leamy needs and wants in life. Isn't that interesting? You have to have head knowledge of who this woman is, who this man is, but you got to follow through. What better investment to, take him on an overnight, ladies. Do something different. How about an email that gets his attention? How about a little note in his lunch pail? How about a note in between his computer when he opens it up? There's a little love note. Put something in his lunch, he'll be shocked. He won't pull that out in front of the men he works with. Put a little note on it. Maybe they could be pink in color. A little note that says, "I'll be waiting for you when you get home. Can't wait to see you, big boy." You know what he'll do? He'll walk into his boss's office and say, "Boss, I got a migraine. I need to go home immediately." Grant in fantasy what you can't in reality. I tell you, there's something healthy about a husband and wife who cherish each other, honor each other, and know what the other person likes. I think most of us know what would please our husbands. I think most of us know what would please our wives, but we don't do it because we're selfish. Marriage is not a competitive sport. If someone's winning your marriage, everybody loses. You speak well of your husband, I'll tell you, you'll never go wrong, ladies. Show your husband. Show him how much you love him. You know, some of you listen to Focus on the Family over the years. For those of you who don't know, that's Jim Dobson, and now Dobson's left Focus on the Family, but I made a note to myself. The number one program, in top 10 programs, was Have a New Husband by Friday. Now that's the book I wrote for you women, okay? It's not a Cash for Clunkers program. We're not talking about dumping your husband, Harold. We're talking about understanding Harold, okay? And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to write a book to women who are so relational and they understand relationships? But the whole point of that book is you don't understand what that husband thinks like and who he really is. And the key is to understand this man. This sounds archaic, but he wants to be your hero. He wants to please you. And a lot of women, they say, Leman, you got to be kidding me. Doesn't act like he wants to please me. He does. Well, he gets turned off. When he gets turned down, he becomes this little 4-year-old. He does his little pout thing. He goes under his little turtle shell, and he just shuts you off. And the way he can shut you off is by not talking. And you try to ask him questions, he's not going to give you anything. Nothing. We don't like questions. Tell me more about that. You want to get your husband's attention, ladies? Touch him. Touch him. One lady said, Leman, I tried that. Next thing I know is look at the ceiling. Enjoy. Those things happen. That's who he is. I'd be careful when you touch him. You know, you might plan that. Plan spontaneity, I call it. But anyway, rules to live by, ladies. He's not your husband. He's your husband, not your girlfriend, excuse me. He doesn't and never will think like you. How many of you spend so much time trying to get him to think like you? He doesn't think like you. He's equal, but not the same. Now, I've shared the podium with Gloria Steinem. Now, can you imagine two people who see life differently than Gloria Baby and myself? There was a celebration of womanhood at the University of Illinois in Champaign. 15,000 women descend upon that city. Keynote speakers, Gloria Baby and me. I can't think of two people who talk about, and I gave the most traditional talk on marriage. It was fun. I couldn't wait to get to the phone and call Mrs. Uppington and tell them about the response. 15,000 women on their feet after I had spoken to them about what marriage is all about. And interesting, she spoke in the morning, okay? She also got a standing ovation. She spoke about healthy self-esteem. I rode with her in the limousine to the airport. She cried half the way. Didn't think people liked her. Again, her topic, healthy self-esteem. For the record, self-esteem is not in God's word. That's one of those little inventions that we've done in our culture today. You got to be happy, happy, happy. I got news for you. Your kids don't need to be happy all the time, and you're not going to be happy all the time. It's called marriage. It's called work. And you work together. You try to get behind each other's eyes. There's days that are better than others. The scripture tells us, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Learn to talk about things. A lot of us as men, we don't talk to anybody, okay? Now, if you're going to criticize what we say and evaluate what we say, he's never coming out, ladies. He's going to stay there, and you're going to live a life that's not, quite frankly, much fun. Women as little girls talk and we talk. Little boys talk and I talk. Me talk, okay? Women by their nature are relational. Men aren't. Okay, so men specialize in arm's length relationships. Does your husband want an arm's length relationship with you? No. He wants an intimate relationship with you. But if you're going to be critical of him, he reverts to that 4-year-old, he shuts down, and you're done. As simple as that.